On the night his boyhood dream should have died, Jamie Vardy was working a night shift on a factory floor, molding plastic splints for the medical industry, wearing an electronic ankle tag under his socks because a curfew forced him home by 6 every evening. 9 years later, that same man would lift the Premier League trophy as one of the most improbable champions the sport has ever produced. Jamie Vardy, the man who refused to be ordinary. He was born in Sheffield in January 1987, a working-class city built on steel and stubbornness, and football found him early, the way it finds most English boys, on concrete five-a-side courts and school pitches where speed was the only currency that mattered. He had it in abundance. What he did not have, in the eyes of the clubs that mattered, was size, polish, or pedigree. Sheffield Wednesday took him into their youth ranks as a boy, believing in the raw engine of his running. But by 16 they let him go, judging him too small and too raw to carry a professional career. For most players, that rejection is the end of the story. For Vardy, it was the beginning of a much longer and much harder one. He did not sulk. He went to work. He took a job at a factory that manufactured medical splints and carbon fiber components, standing at a production line for shifts that stretched long into the night, and he played football in his spare hours for whatever club would have him. First Stocksbridge Park Steels, deep in the non-league pyramid, a world of muddy pitches, tiny crowds, and no safety net. He was not being scouted. He was not being tracked by academies. He was simply playing because he could not imagine not playing, and because somewhere underneath the exhaustion of factory shifts, he still believed his legs were faster than everyone else's. Then came the darkest turn of his young life. In 2007, Vardy was convicted of assault following an altercation and was made to wear an electronic tag with a strict nightly curfew, a punishment that would have quietly ended most footballing ambitions before they began. Instead, he trained around it, adjusted his life around it, and kept scoring. Clubs at that level do not forgive distractions easily, but his talent was becoming impossible to ignore. He moved on to Halifax Town, then to FC Halifax Town as the club reformed, and his goal tallies kept climbing at a rate that non-league scouts could not explain away as coincidence. He was closing in on his mid-20s, an age by which most professional careers are already defined, and he was still playing part-time, still clocking in at a factory, still essentially invisible to the world of professional football. The breakthrough, when it finally arrived, came from an unlikely door. In 2012, Fleetwood Town, then playing in the conference, paid what was reported as a record fee for a non-league player to sign him, immediately validating what a small circle of admirers had suspected for years. He barely had time to settle before an even bigger leap arrived. That same year, Leicester City, freshly ambitious under new ownership and pushing for the Premier League, paid what was again reported as a non-league record fee to bring him to the championship. He was 25 years old, an age when careers are supposed to be entering their prime rather than beginning their professional chapter, and yet here he was, stepping for the first time into full-time football at a club with genuine top-flight aspirations. Leicester won promotion to the Premier League in 2014, and Vardy's rise from that point on stopped looking like a career arc and started looking like a rewriting of what was possible in modern football. In his first Premier League season, he helped Leicester survive a relegation battle with a string of late results that hinted at the resilience to come. But it was the 2015-16 season that turned Jamie Vardy from a feel-good story into a genuine phenomenon. Leicester City had been priced by bookmakers as 5,000-to-1 outsiders to win the league, odds so long they were treated as a novelty rather than a market. Vardy did not treat it as a joke. Early in that campaign, he broke the Premier League record by scoring in 11 consecutive matches, a run that eclipsed a mark that had stood since the competition's earliest years and turned him into a nightly headline, his pace repeatedly tearing through defensive lines that had no answer for a striker built on non-league grit rather than academy polish. Leicester's title challenge, built on Vardy's ruthless finishing in behind opposition defenses alongside a team of similarly overlooked players, refused to fade as the season wore on. Where wealthier, more fancied clubs stumbled under pressure, Leicester kept winning, and Vardy kept scoring the goals that mattered most. Timed runs in behind static backlines, clinical finishes under pressure, the kind of movement that had once terrorized non-league defenders now dismantling the best defensive units in England. In May 2016, Leicester City were confirmed as Premier League champions, one of the most extraordinary title triumphs in the history of European football, and Jamie Vardy, the factory worker who had once worn a curfew tag to play part-time football, stood at the center of it. He was named the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year and won the Premier League Golden Boot race's closest rival honors that season, cementing a personal transformation as remarkable as the collective one. International recognition followed the domestic explosion. He earned his first England call-up and scored on his senior debut in 2015, a moment that closed the loop on a journey that had started in non-league obscurity and ended on the biggest stages the English game could offer. He represented England at the 2018 World Cup in Russia, where the national team reached the semi-finals, contributing to a run that reignited belief in the England setup after years of disappointment. Even as new signings and superstar reputations rotated in and out of Leicester's squad over the following seasons, Vardy remained the club's most dangerous weapon, his pace refusing to dim in the way conventional football wisdom insists it should for a striker who did not begin his professional career until nearly 26. He continued to break records that belonged to a different kind of player entirely. He became Leicester City's all-time record goalscorer in the Premier League era, overtaking club legends who had spent entire careers at the King Power Stadium, and in doing so he answered permanently every doubt that had followed him out of Sheffield Wednesday's academy as a teenager. In 2021, he added an FA Cup winner's medal to his collection as Leicester lifted the trophy for the first time in the club's history, scoring crucial goals throughout that cup run and proving that his impact was never limited to one extraordinary season. Community Shield success followed in the same period, further silverware for a player whose career, on paper alone, should never have included any of it. Leicester's fortunes eventually turned, and the club suffered relegation from the Premier League in 2023, a heavy blow for an institution that had tasted the summit of English football under Vardy's leadership. True to the character that had defined his entire journey, he did not walk away when the club needed him least convenient to keep. He stayed through the championship campaign, continued scoring at a rate remarkable for a player deep into his 30s, and helped fire Leicester City straight back up to the Premier League at the first attempt in 2024, extending a story of loyalty that had become as central to his legend as any individual statistic. In 2025, after more than a decade wearing Leicester's colours, he brought that chapter to a close, departing the club that had transformed him from a factory line unknown into a Premier League champion, and moving to Italian football with Cremonese, extending his career into a new footballing culture entirely. What Jamie Vardy leaves behind is not simply a trophy cabinet, though that cabinet is considerably fuller than anyone could reasonably have predicted for a boy released by his hometown club at 16. His legacy is the proof he offers every overlooked amateur playing on a rutted non-league pitch on a cold Tuesday night that the traditional academy pipeline is not the only road into the professional game. He is remembered as the beating heart of the most unlikely title-winning team English football has ever seen, as the man who turned a 5,000-to-1 shot into reality, and as a striker whose game, built on raw pace and fearless running rather than manufactured technique, proved that football's oldest hierarchies can still be broken by pure will. Long after the record for consecutive scoring matches is eventually challenged, and long after Leicester's miracle season fades into pure folklore, Jamie Vardy's story will still be told the same way it began, as a reminder that the factory floor and the Premier League summit are sometimes separated by nothing more than the refusal to stop believing.